Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining what I personally think is one of the best sessions of today. I'm just being slightly biased. So thank you so much for coming along. Now, I've got some wonderful women working in tech that I'm going to introduce you to in a moment. But before I do, can everybody hear me okay? Can I get a thumbs up? Excellent. Thank you. So who's been enjoying, and what do we think of our new tech? Yeah? I like this. I feel like we're pioneers. And also, what do you think of the festival so far? Yeah, another thumbs up. Excellent. I was thinking on my way in that you all are the festival. You know, our wonderful team kind of set this up, but you are the festival. Imagine if you didn't turn up today. We'd be like, what? There's no festival. So thank you so much for joining. Now I'm going to introduce you to Rakia, Tommy, and Tennessee. So thank you, ladies, so much for joining me and Black Tech Fest today. So before I get started, I am Maria Penga-Wallace. I lead our advanced program here. And it would be lovely to hear from you all your current role and just a little bit about what it involves. Rakia, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. Can everyone hear me? Yeah, great. So I'm Rakia. I am a product manager currently working at Framestore. Framestore is a visual effects company, and I work within the systems engineering team. And essentially what I do is I help to ship products or services that help other technical teams. So it could be cloud products or networks or Linux or anything that has to do with storage. And the purpose of that is to help us to create better visual effects in movies and ads or even immersive experiences. So that's what I currently do.
Hi everyone, my name is Tommy. So I work with AWS, so Amazon Web Services, so essentially the cloud provider of Amazon, right? And I am a cloud infrastructure architect with them. So with regards to my role and my day-to-day, so I've been with AWS for a little over 4 years, and what my role involves a lot of DevOps. I work in public sector, so most of my customers are in public sector and they're in central government, right? So this involves a lot of migration of their on-premise data warehouses to the cloud, application modernization, CI/CD, DevOps, things like that. So there's AIML. It's very much like a mixture of all things, and my role in particular, I tend to work as the development lead on these projects. So that's what I do with AWS.
Hi everyone, my name is Tennessee Watt. I'm a marketing manager at Google. I work in the brand and reputation team, which is the team that kind of focuses on mostly Google's social impact projects. So we cover everything from sustainability to diversity, equity and inclusion to like supporting local businesses. So whenever you see ads like that, it's probably our team that did it. My core role focuses on helping more Black people break into the tech industry. So I'm working on a project called Tech Equity Collective. It's currently focused on the US market, but we have plans to like expand in the future and reach more audiences. But essentially we're running like technical training programs, boot camps and things that just help create more access to the industry outside of work. I also run my own DEI agency called Tennessee Watt Consulting. It's tennesseewatt.com, where I help companies transform their culture. So help them with inclusive marketing, I help them with employee engagement and that sort of thing. And I come from an agency background as well, so hopefully I can speak to making that transition from like marketing agencies into a tech company.
Can we just get a whoop whoop? A little bit of a what an array of talent we have on this stage. Thank you so much. Now, I should say that at the end of our 25 minutes, I'm going to open it out for a few moments for some questions. So do be thinking about some questions that you might want to ask at the end of our conversation. So that's really interesting to hear about your current roles and how interesting they are, how rich, varied. But what about your first ever role in tech? You know, how did you find that? What was the process like? And yeah, could you share more insight even into the recruitment process a little bit? Tennessee, would you like to?
Yeah, I'll start. So actually, Google is technically like my first ever role in tech. Prior to that, I was working with tech in like digital marketing roles, things like that, but I'd never worked in a tech company before. So it was interesting sort of making that transition and exciting for me as well. I think Google breaking in terms of the recruitment process was interesting because it was thorough, but I did feel comfortable. I felt like I was prepared for each stage, and I think that was because of a few different things. So I had these transferable skills that I could speak to, which was very helpful. While I had never been in tech, I worked a lot with tech platforms. So I'd done digital marketing. I worked with LinkedIn ads, Twitter ads, things like that. So I was able to speak to a passion for technology, and also I had an elevator pitch, which I think was very key for me. So
We can tell.
I love that. So essentially, I think you'll always get this question in interviews, which essentially is like, tell me a bit about yourself, and it's deliberately vague. And I tended to structure it using an elevator pitch format. So I started off with saying, this is what I do, what I'm passionate about, and then I went into more detail into particular skills. So I listed off about 8 skills, and then after that, I wrapped up with impact. So I threw in some stats similar to what I put on my CV, just like here's the proof points, and then I importantly nailed down how it would be relevant for that role in particular. So I'd done enough research into the role to sort of understand the requirements. I think that was really helpful for me.
That is so helpful to me. Thank you. Tell me.
So my answer is a bit different, right? So my background is in electrical and electronics engineering. So that is quite technical, right? So it's an engineering, degree. But that being said, doesn't necessarily mean that just meant that it was like very easy for me to break into the tech industry. So when I graduated, I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do, right? I knew I wanted to get into tech, but I didn't know how I wanted to get into it. I didn't actually know about the cloud at that point, if I'm being honest. I had really no idea what the cloud was, right? I didn't know, okay, so there are cloud providers and this is like the next thing. I didn't know that. Then I got into consulting. So I was working as an SAP database and tech consultant, right? So this was very much, okay, a graduate role, you get a role based off of, STEM career, right? So if you've studied anything, science, technology, engineering related, you can get into that role. But then at this point, I tried to figure out, okay, what exactly does this mean for me, right? I am doing something based off of, I've never had any experience with customers. I don't know what the real world is like, but what do I really want to do with my career? How do I really want to break into the tech industry? And then I started looking up more things. I started researching, and then I found out more about the cloud, right? And then I started trying to up my skills because I had engineering skills, I had some software skills, coding, like Python, C++, like the basics. But did I really have the skills to be on the cloud? And then I started looking at certifications, right? So I was in this graduate role for about 11 months, and then I started looking at cloud certifications. Then I looked at the AWS certification, and then I did the AWS SA Associate certification. And this way, I then went to apply to AWS. So this is actually how I applied to AWS. I did the cert for the role, and then I looked at the basic and preferred qualifications. And one thing I would say that's very important, I don't think people stress this enough, is that when you're applying for a role, especially a role in tech, you want to make sure that both your basic and preferred qualifications match. So you want to actually match up with those two. So you don't just want to tick the basic, but you also want to tick the preferred qualifications as well, right? And then from that point on, it's all about selling yourself, just like what you said. So having your elevator pitch, knowing exactly what it is that you want, and letting them know that you actually deserve that role, right? So for me, I went through those stages, and then I joined AWS. So it was kind of very similar. It was 11 months post my first grad role, and then I joined AWS, and then I had to start learning what it was like to work in like a big company, and then understand the customers and understand the market. But then with AWS, they're quite very supportive. So in terms of you having mentors, in terms of you having, people showing you the ropes, in terms of you, having someone to explain things to you on the customer side, knowing what you want to do if you're trying to specialize, things like that. So a lot of those things really helped me. And for me, as a woman in tech, it was very much different because I would look around, I would go to customer sites, I would just be everywhere, and, my customers are males. Most people I'm talking to, don't exactly look like me, right? I can't enforce what's happening on the outside world, but then it was just like the reality of things. So then I had to learn how to actually feel comfortable as, being myself, knowing that I'm present here as a Black woman in the tech industry. So these are things that I had to learn and that had to come with it. But like what I would say is most definitely, even if you already have a tech role, it is still something that you can do to get into, say, any big company. It's just about applying yourself. It's just about understanding what the role requires, and you most definitely can do it.
So much insight. Thank you. Rakia, please share.
Yeah, so actually I'll give it a bit of a context on my background. I studied biomedical science, which is very sort of different to what I'm currently doing. And I do get a lot of people who are in similar positions. So I would say how I got into tech was through working at a startup. And I would say that was a part of my final year project at Imperial. I was studying innovation, entrepreneurship, and management. So I had to either do work experience or either write a business plan or do a consulting project. And seeing that I didn't have enough experience in tech, I decided to do work experience at a startup. So I had applied through a platform called AngelList, which you can essentially find almost every startup on there. And my first role was as an operations analyst. The process was pretty straightforward because I had a first round interview with the founder of the company, and which was just a chat with the person about my motivations, why I wanted to work in tech and why I wanted to work in the company. They didn't really specify any technical skills, which was great. I think what really helped was pushing for recognition of my soft skills, so communication, being able to talk to development teams and technical teams, but also being able to analyze data and pick out insights from there and use that, to have an impact. So those are the major things that were being looked for in that role. After that, I had a second round interview, which was another chat, which was more of a culture fit interview with the rest of the team members in the company. And in 2 weeks, I got an offer. So it wasn't very technical. I didn't do any technical assessments. And I think it was a great way to get into tech if you don't have those technical skills, because not only do you get exposure to other roles within the company, but you have flexibility to try different things and find your niche area and where you want to work at in the company. So that's how I transitioned into sort of from operations to product management. But I would say definitely check out AngelList and work in startups. Those are really great platforms to apply for jobs in tech in startups. So yeah.
Thank you. Do you know what I love about all of that? So different. I mean, there's common themes. So you're all talking about be prepared, have that elevator pitch, really communicate and talk about your skills, have that ready. But all very different ways, actually, of the journey into tech. So that's really interesting. Thank you. So in terms of your career, so we've spoken about, that first route into tech. What have you been most proud of so far? You know what? Not even so far. What have you been most proud of? It could be what you're hoping to achieve in the future, or it could be current focused as well. But what are you most proud of in your career?
Okay, I can go first with that one. So I think for me, what I like to say is two things. It's impact and flexibility. Right, so flexibility from the point of, with the way my role is set up, even though obviously there's certain things I have to do in terms of delivering for the customer, but I have the flexibility to do things outside of my role, the things that matter to me. So for me, I don't want to be the only black woman in the room, right? I know when we're looking at, for instance, Black Tech Fest, we're talking about black people. But then when I narrow it down to something that's more relatable, then it will be black females, right? It's just how I see things. And for me, my role gives me the flexibility to do a lot of things. So for instance, with AWS, I'm a senior speaker, right? And a lot of the things I do focus on DEI. So it gives me the opportunity to do things like CBF mentoring. So basically CBF, I don't know if anyone knows about them. They are Coding Black Females. Yeah, exactly, great. So Coding Black Females.
We get a whoop whoop for Coding Black Females. So much great work.
So it's an amazing, amazing, amazing company with Tanya, that is the CTO. Like, she's so great. So I do mentoring with them. And one of the things I do is, so we had like this cohort where basically we would help mentor females to get the AWS SA Associate, help them with like DevOps, with career paths and things like this to help them get into cloud, right? And just even touching on some of the things that you said, you don't necessarily have to be someone with a tech background. Right? That's also why I love CBF, because they help you get there. And they also do this virtually, so you don't also have to be based in like the UK. Right, so my role gives me the flexibility to do that. And then also with things like Grace Hopper, right? So I'm a Grace Hopper scholarship reviewer. And what this means is that I help review scholarships of students and faculties to help them attend the Grace Hopper conference for, recruiting, for mentoring and things like that. Because for instance, AWS goes there, we do live recruiting at Grace Hopper. We do live recruiting at Blackest Tech. So Blackest Tech is kind of very similar to Black Tech Fest, but it's the US version of that, right? So again, these are things that I can do because of my role. So it gives me the flexibility to do this, and these are things that make an impact, right? Because if you're able to speak to more people, if you're able to, help with life recruiting of like Black women and Black people, then you can get more people into tech. And there's this one question that I get asked a lot of times when I'm speaking or when I'm doing anything related, which is, oh, but you already have a tech background, so how do I then get into tech or get into AWS as an example? But AWS, yes, is a technical company, but not every role is technical. So for instance, I'm delivering on a technical front, right? I would work as a development lead. That is something technical. However, on the project I'm on, we have project managers, we have product managers, right? So a lot of the skills are transferable across different technical companies or not even technical. So say you're a program manager, a product manager, you're an engagement manager, right? If you think of like, Scrum, Agile, things like this, these are roles that are still being looked for and still being advertised all the time by AWS, by Amazon. There's several roles like this that exist. Now, I'm speaking from AWS from a cloud point, but also these roles exist in Amazon as a whole, right? There's like an Amazon stand here. I'm pretty sure if you ask people about these roles, they do exist, right? So you don't necessarily have to be a software development engineer. You don't necessarily have to know how to code. You don't have to do all these things. I work with people day to day who don't do these things, right? And they're in the company. Yes, there are people that need to know how to code, but then that's a section, right? There are other sections that don't involve that. So you don't have to love coding. What I would say is if it's your passion, then 100% please do get into it. But if it's not, it doesn't stop you from being in a tech role in a tech company, right? So you shouldn't let that limit yourself. And just going back to the question, because I know I have deviated a little bit or a lot.
Just a little bit.
Just a little, is in terms of what I am really proud of, yes, it's just being able to, speak at conferences that are IDNE related, being able to take on IDNE initiatives, right? So again, with Amazon, I work as the for International Women's Day. I'm basically the Amazon Small Business Enterprise and Partnerships Manager. And I basically help get more small business enterprises featured on the Amazon page, helping increase their sales and things like that. So I also do this to then help with diversity, so help increase diversity of getting more black entrepreneurs, more black small businesses featured and things like that. So these are things that are important to me. And the fact that my role gives me the flexibility to do this, right? So while still doing the role that, that I have my 9 to 5, I can still do this. I can still travel to do things that actually make an impact. So those are the things I would say that I'm most definitely proud of, because those are things I personally like to do. And yes, I do like the technical side of things, but then, the fact that I can marry the two and still do both of them, then that's worthwhile for me.
Tommy, thank you so much. Can I just ask a little bit more about that? So sometimes when I speak to professionals, they say, I would love to do more in DEI space, diversity, equity, inclusion, but actually I just want to keep my head down. I want to get my job done because that's really important for my career track. Mm-hmm. And so my question to you is, one, how do you find the time? But also the second point is, how does that impact positively on your career? So you mentioned that you're doing this kind of international speaking. Does that lend itself and does it translate into advance of your tech-specific role as well?
Yes and no, right? So I do speaking for AWS as a senior speaker from technical points as well. So when I was speaking to you about like what I was doing yesterday, that was I was speaking at an AWS pop-up in Poland, and that was on security, right? So that's not DEI. But however, I do a lot of DEI speaking as well and DEI initiatives, right? So in terms of finding the time, it's all about prioritization. And this wasn't something that I learned immediately. So I'm not going to say, oh, wow, yes, I just got in and immediately I knew how to prioritize and I knew what to speak on or what not to do. No, I think I started doing this when I felt more comfortable and more grounded, right? When I actually knew how to put my time. So for instance, I work as a consultant, which means like I'm billable to the customer, right? Then I prioritize in terms of like, okay, I know that I can deliver this work by this time and I can do all of this, and then I still have time to do this as well. So it doesn't impact it doesn't impact negatively on the work that I am doing because I'm learning how to prioritize, and also communicating really well, right? So from the point of communicating with your manager, right, letting them know, okay, this is what I'm working on, this is what I am doing, right, to know how many initiatives you can take on. I mean, there's several initiatives out there. You probably may not be able to do all of them, but then if you can impute and just make a difference, because like it could just be to you, it could be like a drop in the ocean, but then that drop then becomes a lot bigger, right? So for me, it was about learning to prioritize, learning how to communicate, letting people know exactly what it is that I am doing, right? And then also not taking on too much that I can handle. So I have to be able to know that, okay, at this point, this is my limit. I can't do more than this because I don't want to seem sloppy or seem like I can't, deliver. So if I'm taking on something, I know that I can start it from the beginning and carry out to the end. So this is DEI, this is my actual work, this is everything encompassing, so it has to be all of it.
Lovely, thank you so much. Rakai, would you like to, what are you most proud of in your career?
I would speak more from an aspirational perspective. I think that getting into tech, I didn't have a visible role model. I didn't see people that look like me, similar to what Tomi said. And especially in the product community, I would say there are very few black women in product. And so from an aspirational perspective, my goal is to be that visible role model to help people to get into technology and also to just help people understand that you don't need a technical background. It's not this high and mighty thing that to get into tech. You can actually get into tech. It's all about leveraging your brand, but also your soft skills and also leveraging networks and mentors. So for me would be, that voice to be that person where people can talk to and reach out to when they need to get into technology. But also I think being someone who's very active in the product community in the future and helping to just show more product management skills out there and also to just be someone who can be there for women in product. So that's kind of what my aspirational goal is.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Tennessee?
Yeah, so I thought about this a little bit, and honestly, it's breaking into DEI because I always sort of wanted to be a technologist, like since I was a kid, like that's what I wanted to do. And so I did go to uni, I did my master's in business and innovation at Imperial because I knew I wanted to pivot into the tech industry. But when I graduated as a marketer and I even did an internship in tech, I wasn't fulfilled, and I didn't really understand it at the time because I thought, this is my dream, I just want to do tech marketing, I want to work on consumer products. And it was only when I did a year in crisis management, I didn't really like it very much. And then I moved into DEI for the first time. And it was really fulfilling for me because it was the first time I realized that actually my lived experience, things that I had gone through, the good and the not so good, were the first time relevant in my work. And I could bring that insight into my work. And I never thought that my life experience, my culture, where I come from, would ever be useful at the workplace. I kind of saw work before that as kind of a job. So I'd go to work and then focus on the task at hand. And then I would go back home and I would be myself around my friends and family. And this was the first time I was able to bring who I am into my work. And I think it's useful for people. It's helpful to them because I think as marketers, what we do is we put ourselves in the minds of the customer. That's what we do. But in this sense, I kind of am the end user. And I love that it's helpful to people. I can reach out to them through my marketing, through my communications, and in a way that helps them to get access to opportunities that they might not have thought are for them. So I think that's really fulfilling for me.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all three of you. Now we've got 5 minutes more conversation with our panel and then we're going to open it out to questions. So if anyone does have a question, and we'll have an opportunity to hear at least one or two. So what about role models? So I think all of you have kind of mentioned the impact of inspiration, role models, mentors. What impact has that been important for you in your career journey in tech, and what does that look like?
Sure, I'll go. So the role of a mentor has been very, very important for me. I'll say 1,000%. So I have a mentor at AWS, and I chose my mentor myself, right? So I'm very much, if I want something or if I see something in someone, then I would, go there and to learn from that person. So for me, I chose my mentor myself. It's a she, yes. She's African American, so our meetings are very much virtual. But then she is basically a senior manager at AWS, and she is amazing, right? So I obviously saw the strong black woman who, I wanted to learn a lot from, and I chose her. But that being said,
Can I just ask a specific question on that? When you say you chose her, how did that go? Did you say, hello, you're inspirational, can you be my mentor? Can you talk us through, how did that actually...
So the one thing that I love about AWS is the fact that you can pick your mentors. You can decide who you want to be your mentors. You can
So
have
there's a
like
formal route?
you. So not necessarily. So when you join the company, right, they would like give you a mentor to like help you through things. But then at the same time, you could just walk up to whoever and say, "Can you be my mentor?" You can have 5 mentors, 10 mentors, or whatever, right? So with the relationship with my current mentor, I met her, I think, when around the time I joined, maybe like 4 years ago, right? But she wasn't my mentor at the time. It was just she said something, right? She was talking about we were like at this tech conference, and then she was talking about I think personal care and taking care of your mental health.
Could relate to what
yeah,
she
so
was
she was
sharing.
saying a lot of things. I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then she actually didn't become my mentor till this year, right? So like this year, I remember reaching out to her and I'm like, hi, remember me, right? Yeah, because again, I feel like we shouldn't be afraid to, speak to people, walk up to people, especially if,
Fortune favors the brave.
Yes, exactly. If you don't ask for something, you're not going to get it, right? So I literally reached out to her and I was like, can you be my mentor? Obviously, I didn't use those words. I was, more specific in terms of like, oh, I met you at this time, and I really think you're inspirational. So this is what I'm looking for from a career point, and I really love you to mentor me. And then I just put in like a meeting in her calendar, like, let's just have like a coffee chat, right? And then see how that goes, if like we're a good fit. And that was how that worked.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Rikai, would you like to share whether to the same question, mentor sponsors, the impact?
Yeah, definitely. I think you need a mentor in tech, and if possible, if you can find someone that looks like you, that really helps because they can understand your struggle, and they can also, be someone who vouches for you, or could be the next route to your next role. So I think it's really important to have a mentor. I would say it's easy to say, yeah, you can have a mentor, but how do you get a mentor? So I think if you don't have a company that, has a mentorship scheme, there are certain platforms or organizations that you can go to that offer free mentorship. So they connect you with a mentor. So it's like a mentee-mentor, platform. So one of it is RecWorks, and it's free. So all you have to do is sign up on the website, and what they do is they have routine, meet a mentor, speed networking event. So where they just randomly match you with a mentor, or you could specify what type of mentor that you want to connect with, and they would help you do that. But also there are other platforms like ADP List, which is also free, and you can connect with people within the tech space, either in the UK or even abroad. So it's quite big in the US as well. So I would say definitely, if you can, try to get a mentor, and it definitely helps. It helped me in my product management journey. It also helped me with other aspects of my career. If I have a question regarding product that I'm not familiar with, I can go to my mentor and they can help me with that. So I would say definitely.
Lovely. Thank you so much for those very practical reference points there. And I saw everyone getting out their phone and jotting those down. So good. Tennessee, same question to you.
Yeah, mentorship has been very helpful for me. So I went through a formal scheme with BYP Network. So there was a woman she was ex-Google and she currently works at Snapchat. And as I was applying for Google, she was there every stage. So like from my CV submission to my interviews and even at negotiation. So she actually gave me advice on negotiating my offer and stuff like that. So it was she was indispensable. But I feel like if you can't get on a scheme like that, like don't wait for a mentor. There are other ways to sort of get informal mentoring and seek out role models.
People respond on LinkedIn.
Exactly.
Yeah, they do. They do.
True.
So yeah, I was actually going to go into LinkedIn because it's so perfect in the sense that you can kind of curate your feed in the way that you want. I feel like we have a problem, which was kind of the opposite problem of our parents, in that instead of taking a while to find the right information, we just have an abundance of it. So we have to ruthlessly prioritize how we spend our time online to make sure that we're using it in the right way. So I encourage you to kind of take a look at your following list and follow more people who are kind of, maybe they're doing what you'd be interested in doing, maybe they're 2 years ahead of you in career, and just kind of chip away at what they're putting out, like whether it's like content or advice, and just think about how you can implement that for you in your life. That has been so helpful for me.
Thank you so much. And be specific when you do reach out, not generic.
Can I just say one thing, right?
We probably have time for about 10 seconds for you to
I'll
say
be
one
quick.
more thing.
Just one thing. So with regards to mentoring, you don't have to have one mentor, right? So even though like I didn't say everything, I don't just have one mentor. You can have a mentor for different aspects of your life or different aspects of your career. So don't think that because you have one mentor that you shouldn't then reach out to someone else. And again, messaging people on LinkedIn shouldn't be scary. Like just send them a message, right? This could be for like an informal coffee chat. It doesn't have to be recurring. So again, these are things that I would definitely advise that you do because I do that as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Now, open to all of you. Well, not all of you. We've got time for probably one question. Possibly two, but the step one. Okay, I've been told one. Yes. No, we can't hear you. Has someone got a mic?
My question was directed to Tennessee. The way your career has kind of gone is really similar to where I'm at now. I've just graduated in journalism and media, but my experience and internships have been like digital marketing, social media marketing, and now sort of specializing SEO. And I'm trying to make that now transition into tech using a digital marketing background. You mentioned about some of your transferable skills that helped you from digital marketing into tech. What were the skills that were highlighted for you?
Yeah, thanks for that question. There's three that stand out for me. So first one is working with digital platforms. So knowing them inside out, knowing how to reach people using them, and knowing how to measure and evaluate performance. So speak to those metrics from things that you've done, your campaigns, speak to stakeholders that you work with, all your KPIs and how you meet them. That's really important. Another thing is social impact. So tech is big on social impact for obvious reasons. There's a lot of like reputational challenges that the tech industry faces. So wherever you have worked on impact issues, anything from ethics, privacy, anything around DEI or sustainability, if you can speak to that in your applications and your interviews, that is well loved by tech companies. They want to know you know how to navigate that social context that they live in. And then final thing, clients. So I was lucky enough that at my agencies I did have tech clients I worked on. I worked on TikTok. I also worked on a couple of other tech companies, Brandwatch and stuff like that. So I was able to talk about my experience with those clients, how I understood their business models, how I understood how they maneuvered throughout the world, society, and engaged with their stakeholders. And I think whenever you can speak to that experience, that can be very helpful too.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry. We are going to have to wrap it up. Otherwise, I'm going to lose my job today. So thank you all so much to our wonderful panelists. Thank you. Will you be around for a little moment in case anyone wants to come up and ask any questions?
Yeah,
Thank
sure,
you.
sure.
And thank you very much to everyone joining. Much appreciated. Enjoy the rest of the festival.